Hello. So I was just on a road trip with my mom, and we had a great discussion. We had about 2 hours to talk, and we touched on a lot of topics. But the overall theme of the entire conversation was finding your happiness. And she opened up my way of thinking a little bit more in regards to realizing and understanding that happiness means something different to every single one of us. And so I have a couple bullet points here of things we're going to talk about. The first is to define happiness, because I realized that our definitions of happiness weren't exactly the same. The second one is, what does it mean to you? Like you. The third is, happiness is different for everyone. And the fourth is changing and evolving. So the conversation started off with me saying, Mom, listen to this. If everyone only worried about their own happiness, the entire world would be happy. Okay? And in my head, that makes total sense to me. On my journey in my life right now, February 20 something, I don't know. I'll put it down in the description. It makes sense that in my mind that if everybody just focused on keeping themselves happy, that the whole world would be happy. But she challenged me. And she said, well, what do you mean by happiness? I would need you to define happiness for me to be able to agree or disagree, you know? And I said, well, just being happy, you know? Who needs a definition for what being happy is? And I said, just being happy, just duh, you know? But I realized if I couldn't even verbalize what being happy meant to me using other words, then what did I really mean, you know? So I thought about it for a moment, and I said, well, being happy to me is that feeling of contentment regardless of where your life is right now, in this very present moment, is being content and being okay with how things are going or whatever's happening. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have aspirations and goals and still be striving for things. But that's how I explained it. That's what came to mind, was just being okay with the present moment and finding happiness in it, regardless of everything else that may be going on in the world or in your life or in your mind or anything. So I said, well, duh, again, how do you define happiness? How would you say it? And her definition of happiness was naming external things or activities that she did with the talents that she has, and in those and those activities brought her happiness. And I hope this isn't too much info of putting my mom's out there, but she named 3 beautiful things. Singing, she's a professional soprano singer. Pilates, she's a professional Pilates instructor. And did I write it down? Oh, and writing. She just wrote the book. I mean, she spent 12 years writing a book, and that's in yesterday's blog. Actually, we were on the way back from Marietta from her going to speak at a book club for this particular book. Okay, so singing, writing, and Pilates, she felt were the things that she named that brought her happiness. And and I had to think about that for a minute because I noticed there was a slight difference in what I considered happiness and what she was naming as happiness for her, which both are right. And whatever you say is right. Nobody can tell us what makes us happy. Most times we don't even know ourselves. It takes practice and it takes time and it takes active effort to find what truly brings you happiness. And we'll get into that in a little bit, maybe. But I had to realize that the difference between hers and my definition was she was naming these external activities that brought her happiness. And I was speaking more of like an innate peace, a feeling, or even a mindful state of being, like constantly, not necessarily doing an activity and having a period of time where you had the emotion of feeling happy. True happiness to me, in my definition, is maybe not needing to do those activities to have this underlying peaceful, happy feeling about yourself all the time. I mean, you can just tell some people are really happy and some people are really not. And some people are a little happy and some people are, and nobody can be happy constantly all the time. Feeling that period of emotion. And so I guess what I learned through this conversation was that when I say happiness, I don't mean things that bring me happiness, to me, which both are right. And hers are right as well, even within my frame of reference. But when I say happiness, it's more of a mindful state of being. And so I had to realize that based on your experiences and your life and your mind and your thoughts and your morals and your ethics and just the uniqueness of you or me or any person, it just proves that happiness isn't the same to everyone. And so I think something to keep in mind is that we are all on different journeys. And just because something makes you happy doesn't mean that it's going to make me happy, or vice versa, or the next person, even if you think it should. Like, there are some things that I'm really happy about or really excited about, and sometimes other people aren't. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? I need some more. I need something more from you, Like, what's going on up there? And you just have to realize that everybody is thinking differently. And very little of what we're thinking actually verbalizes properly to another person. It can verbalize properly, perfectly in our head. But the fact that we are saying it to another person and they have a completely different window of experience, like they talked about this in college, 23 years ago. Okay, it was a frame of reference or a window of experience. And then the one term that I really love is your matrix of knowledge. Okay, basically everybody has a different window that they look out of based on their own life experiences. And while everybody desires to feel happy. That looks different for every single person. And we have to respect that in other people, even when we don't understand it. My fourth bullet point was changing and evolving. And this could get into some stuff that I'm not sure I want to bring into this video because let's just say it's related to my past jobs and they don't necessarily create a lovely, happy feeling inside my body like I'm talking about. But what I wanted to say about changing and evolving is that whatever makes you happy. Okay, first of all, I'm getting a little off track here. First of all, to start being happy, you have to define your own happiness. Write it down. Put it into words. What is happy to you? Okay? Define that. Because I've been on a self-care happiness journey for actively for 6 years now. The first 3, I was still figuring out what kind of journey I was on, and I was not happy at all. I was very sad and very mad, and I was not who you see today coming through this video screen at all. But even at that, the first 3 years, I wasn't sure. I was on the journey, and I was learning, and I was finding out what really made me happy. And the way that I want to bring changing and evolving into this is that I used to, I'm going to say, lie to myself and tell me that I found so much happiness in my jobs or careers or professions or whatever. But looking back and after having this conversation with my mom, you know, what I said to her was, it made me happy to bring happiness to the other people there, the people I worked with, or my regulars, or the guests that came in. And it gave me a sense of fulfillment because I was good. I was good at a lot of things that I did. And that kind of gave me a fake feeling of happiness, I feel like. Because while, yes, I was happy that I was doing these things, or, you know, whatever it could have been. It could be applied to anything. I told my mom today, I said, but Mom, who was I lying to? I was happy that I was progressing and making these other businesses successful for these other owners. You know? I wasn't truly happy because I was doing something for me. I was good at it and I was proud of it, and, you know, and I told myself, oh yeah, man, with so many jobs, so many different jobs. And I was, you know, I was in management in most of my positions. So, you know, jobs with some responsibility. And whenever I'd get a new job, I'd be like, oh yeah, man, this is the best company I've ever worked for. There, you know. That's what I don't want to do. I don't want to get into all the nonsense in my head about jobs, but it was just that I was lying to myself about these jobs bringing me happiness. And I said, Mom, you know, if I was so happy at these jobs, why was I crying on the way to work multiple times a week? Why was I having panic attacks at work to the point that sometimes I had to leave and go hide in my car before I could compose myself to come back in and manage a team and serve guests and do the extreme overload of work that's put on general managers and work another 5, 8, 10 hours in the day. Why, if I loved this job so much and it was bringing me so much joy, was I exhausted all the time? Why did I miss things that I could never get back? Like birthdays and funerals. And family reunions. Because I was so happy at this job. Why did I pass out one day in the middle of the entire floor to where somebody called the ambulance because I was laid out on the floor? And when the ambulance got there, I was so stubborn that I didn't even want them to put me on the ambulance. I sat out on the picnic table outside, and I made them check me out there. And I remember my hands, my entire arms were cramping up so bad, and it scared me so much because I thought I was going paralyzed in my arms. And all the while, I'm thinking I'm going back in after they check me out to work. And I was like, guys, I'm fine. I just have panic attacks. I think I just haven't eaten today. I just got lightheaded. I've just been working a lot lately. I'm really good. And I said, the only thing I'm worried about is that I have my arms, my fingers were so tight. My muscles were so tight that I could not, they were crunching up, and it felt like my entire arms were just going to crunch up into my shoulders. And I was talking to the EMT. There was 2 of them sitting on the other side of the picnic table from me. And I said, I just don't know what this is. This has never happened before. And they said, it's a common stress response. And if you've been having panic attacks lately, that means you're under a lot of stress. A lot of your nervous system is telling you that you're not happy. And I said, okay. And they said, just try to breathe. And usually in about 10 to 15 minutes, it'll start, loosening up. So I stayed there, and they tried to take me to the hospital, and I kept refusing. I was like, no, I have too much work to do. And still, I wanted to get back in there and do such a good job at my job, running somebody else's company, making not enough money to do it. And so I sat out there, and I drank a little water, and my muscles started to slowly kind of release, and the EMTs said that my life was not in immediate danger, so that they could not force me to go to the hospital, even though they highly suggested it, and I still refused. And they had somebody call my partner, and even though I still felt bad about leaving that afternoon. I felt bad about leaving my team, about the work undone, and I was in a serious health condition. And so I went home, and I rested the rest of that day, and I went back the next morning and did it all over again. Until they fired me. Until they fired me several months later because I injured my hip and I couldn't walk, and my value was gone to them. And And that's something I'm still dealing with. So how could these jobs, how could these jobs that took up my entire life, and I kept telling myself that, yeah, I'm happy here, and I wasn't happy. I was scared. I was scared to leave because I was scared that the next place might be worse. And so I really had to look inside myself. I really had to look inside myself after I got fired from that job, which was just now a little over a year ago. And I had to find out what makes me happy, because it's not working for somebody else's business and still struggling to pay bills and still have no time. For me, that's not it. And I understand more now that not everybody is on this same journey. And I wasn't. I worked 50 to 90 hours a week for 27 years. And so for years out of my life, I was a very reverent, loyal, productive employee for a lot of companies. And so I have to realize that just because my happiness isn't found in a job anymore, that's not the journey that everybody is on. But I think that I am called here to this channel to connect with people that are no longer happy working in jobs or careers or positions that no longer bring you happiness. And I said that I didn't really want to get into all this with my jobs, but this is the stuff that needs to be talked about. This is the stuff that's hard to talk about because, you'll be ridiculed or you'll be judged, or, what will people say? She just wants to live without working. But you know what? It's my happiness. And so it doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what anybody says about your happiness or mine. Or if you want to quit your job today and run away, or if you want to go for a promotion in your job, or if you want to look for another job, you just really have to look inside and find, I feel like another thing I realized in the conversation today was that I used to I told myself for years, again, up until prior to 6 years ago, that it made me happy making other people happy. And it does. I think it's a natural human emotion to have a feeling of happiness when you're helping someone else. But I did it to a fault. I did it to a self-sacrifice. I did it thinking that was what made me happy. And I got really, really sick. I got really sick 6 years ago for over a year. And that's when I decided that helping all these other people before I even thought about myself was not making me happy. It was giving me that instant gratification of the natural human emotion of helping someone else. And I have nobody to blame but myself for this. I didn't have self-boundaries. I didn't... Trying to find the right words. Not deserve. I don't want to say I didn't feel like I deserved. It's just that, I don't know, was I looking for acceptance? When I would take somebody to dinner and tell them to get whatever they wanted, but I looked at the... My entire life, I've always looked at the cheapest thing on the menu. And the cheapest thing on the menu, whether it was what I wanted to eat or not. And so I did this to a fault. I was trying to find my own happiness, I think, by helping other people. And I realized that if you do that excessively, okay, I'm all for helping other people. I'm all for community and you know, lending a hand when you can. And you know, sometimes everybody needs a shoulder to cry on, you know, or an extra buck or a meal, you know. So if you keep these things in check already and in balance, then this isn't really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when I only had this definitely took a different direction than I thought. But I think it's good. Let's get back to happiness. So first you have to define happiness in your own words so that it makes sense in your mind, and realize that that's not everybody else's definition of happiness. And then you have to find what makes you happy. Not what everybody tells you makes you happy. Not substances, you know, not alcohol, not drugs, not stuff like that. And not people. Don't find your happiness in other people. This is an internal happiness. What makes you feel tingly on the inside, whether you do it with somebody or you do it alone. What makes you feel alive? What makes your brain feel not so heavy? Okay, and I had to learn that when I got fired from that job, I didn't know what made me happy. I got pregnant at 18. I was a single mother and raised my daughter until a year ago. I worked my ass off. I haven't had time in the last 20 years to do anything, really, you know. Or even find out what made me happy. You know, I took trips. I love to travel, you know, that makes me happy. But I'm not talking about vacations. That's not the type of happiness I'm talking about. I'm talking about a happiness that doesn't cost money. A happiness that you can access anywhere, no matter if you're at home, out in the world, at work, in the bathroom, at a football game. I'm talking about like a happiness that you hold in here, no matter what's going on around you. And I had to realize that I had to try things out. I had to try things out before I even knew if they made me happy or not. And that's the thing, like, the whole world world is trying to shove stuff down our throats, things we need to buy, things we need to do, places we need to go. All external happiness, okay? To get our money that we work really hard for. Okay? And I didn't have any money when I got fired. And I was going crazy because I didn't have a job and I couldn't walk. And I finally had time for the first time in really my life, because before 18 and before I had my daughter, I was a kid, and I was growing up. So I didn't have, I was just learning. I wasn't looking for my own happiness then. I was just being alive, So really, I had to start doing things. And at first, I didn't feel like doing anything. It actually has taken me, it took me about 6 months. It took me about 6 months to have the capacity or even the desire to want to try new things. And to remember what things I learned along the way that I did like. I love being near water. I love being in the woods. There's a connection to nature for all of us, whether we've found it or not. So for a long time, I used to say I didn't like to go on walks. Like, this is boring, What are we going to do? One foot in front of the other. Here we go. And then I progressed to wanting to go on walks, but wanting to explore and wanting to go in places that, hidden trails and off the hiking trail and explore the woods and and I would want to drive to a place to go for a walk. But do you know how many times I didn't go walk because I felt like I had to go to a place? And sometimes it's really hard to get out to a place, depending upon what your mindset is in, So now, and this kind of goes along with the changing or the evolution or the progression of what brings you happiness, of things you like to do. Now, I'll go for a walk anywhere. It does help that I have the doggy now, but I'll go for a walk right outside and walk around these blocks. And I don't have to go anywhere, and I enjoy it. And I feel good about the health and mental benefit of it. And not only that, but it's like a little me time to where you almost have to be connected to the world. And now when I used to think like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Go walk around my own neighborhood? Yeah, go walk around my new neighborhood. Do you know how many cool things I've found since I started walking around my own neighborhood? I'm talking like a whole row of somebody moving out one time, and they just put free stuff all along the side of their like stone wall along their house. I mean, they were treasures. I found keys. Matter of fact, I have a key over here that I found that has a number on it. I still have to find out who it goes to. Just pine cones that look really cool. Just little treasures. Oh, I found a little charm one day. Just like a little charm. I forget what it even was, but just like, and it brings me happiness. But I would have never, and I didn't say, Suze, you need to go on a walk a year and a half ago, or over a year ago when I got fired now. It took me almost 6 months to actually even want to try to start walking again. And so you have to do these things to figure out if you like them or not. And if you don't ever do anything, then you're never going to figure out if you like to do things. Your body actually has to do them. You can't just look at something and say, oh no, I don't want to do that, because you're not experiencing it. You're visualizing it. You're visualizing somebody else doing it even. So what if they're not having a good time doing it? Then your brain is going to be like, oh, well, they're not having a good time. I don't want to try that. But until you do it for yourself, you won't know if you get that tingly little feeling. I've always known that I've gotten a tingly feeling when I sang, when I like really sang. And for years, I've told myself that I can't sing. And I'm from a family of singers. So one day soon, I'm going to try to start singing. I am going to start singing and see if I get that little feeling inside, like the little goosebumps, the little chills, the little sparkle, the little fuzzy feeling inside. If you have never felt that, then you gotta go do different things. And sometimes doing nothing also brings immense happiness. But that's something else I had to learn how to do too. I had to learn how to stop. How to stop working, how to stop thinking so much, how to stop feeling like I always needed to be doing something, how to stop and just be. Not with a phone, not with a TV, just be with my doggy or with my partner or with my daughter or with, with alone. Alone. You gotta learn how to be alone. And the biggest thing is that these things will feel wrong when you first start doing them. These things felt so wrong. It was like an internal dichotomy. Is that what it means? It was like an internal contradiction because I had lived so long with a certain perspective on life. And now, almost overnight, it seemed like my perspective changed. And I guess for me, the biggest thing was moving from putting everybody else first to putting me first. And my mom and I had a great conversation about that too. There's so many levels to understanding that, and it can be taken as very superficial to put yourself first, but we'll get into that in another video. But so my change was doing things for me first before thinking of other people. And to me, that felt so wrong. It felt wrong to just do nothing. It felt wrong. Actually, one of the first times that I made a big decision not to go do this thing for this other person and to go do what I really wanted to do, I had a panic attack. And I'm like, what the freak, bro? I'm putting me first. I've done all this work. I'm finally taking this step to put me first and go do what Suze wants to do because they're going to be okay. It's not a life-threatening situation. They can handle themselves. They're going to be okay. And I still had a panic attack. And I was so confused. And I was on the way to go see Larissa. She's in some of my other vlogs. And I told her what I was going through because I was literally bawling tears when I pulled up to her. And I told her, I said, I don't know why I feel like this. I don't know why I feel like I'm such a bad person. Like I'm doing something so wrong when I'm doing what I want to do. And they're really okay. And she said, because it's different, baby. Because it's different. And you have to give yourself time to be okay with doing things differently. You've lived 40 years plus doing things for everybody else. So do you think that, the first time you do something for yourself, do you think that everything's going to be, you're just going to flip, you're just going to completely change your entire your entire frame of your entire perspective and be okay with that, and your mind and everything. And that just helped me so much, and I'll never forget that. And I recently told her that story when I went to Vegas and saw her. And she didn't even know how much she helped me that moment. I don't even know if she remembered even the situation. But it has truly helped me realize that even though these things feel wrong, and sometimes make me feel like a bad person, or make me feel like it's not the right choice, because I have this contradiction between my heart and my brain, and putting me first and other people first, and just all of that. That doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing to do. But give yourself time to get used to doing it a different way and feeling good about it, and just reinforce why you made that decision in the first place. And reinforce that you are as important as the next person. And it doesn't make us bad people or make you a bad person if somebody asked you to do something, but you just really don't want to do it. You just really don't. But you feel like you should, because of whatever reason. It's okay. And one of the most beautiful things that I just have to keep reminding myself when I make these decisions, because sometimes it's still hard, this is still new to me, putting me first and not doing what I really don't want to do just because I feel like I should or have to, or it's because whatever. By doing this and by living with me as a priority, I can also teach other people to do that for them, which is way better than anybody else making you a priority. It's so much better. First of all, you're going to be with you for the rest of your life. You can't get rid of you. So nobody can leave you, dump you, divorce you. And when you die, you both are gone, okay? I know I'm talking about yourself as like a double person, but that's what I had to do. I had to realize that I had to start treating myself and thinking of my body, my brain as a different person. That's how I did it. That's actually, I'm just realizing, in the very beginning, I had to not think of myself as Suze, the person that I put last, for whatever reason. Not, whatever. I had to start thinking of myself in third person. Okay? And I had to start asking myself, when I got faced with a decision of something that maybe I didn't want to do, or maybe I did, but maybe that's the thing. Sometimes you still want to do these things. You still feel like you want to do these. And again, I'm not saying don't ever do anything for anybody else. I'm not saying don't help people when you can. I'm not saying don't be a kind neighbor. Like, that's what I'm not, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you've severely struggled with not balancing, everything comes back to balance. If you struggle with not balancing how you treat yourself and how you treat other people, and there's two different ways of balancing. Some people need to come to the other side. Some people put themselves before anyone to a fault That's a whole nother story. But some people just need to be a little kinder, okay? So we'll just leave it at that. Some people need to learn how to put others first, just a little bit, okay? But there's a balance, and there's a fine line. And actually, I'm remembering this goes back, everything is connected in this matrix of knowledge. This goes back to the conversation about selflessness and selfishness. And there's a fine line between that. And that's where the balance is. But the thing is that I was off balance for 40 years. And then in my mind, when I got fired from that job, something clicked and I said, I'm not doing this another 20 years. I'm not working another 20 to 50 years, 60. My grandma lived to 101. Okay? My other mama is in her 90s and still kicking. Okay, so I've got a lot of life left, and I'm not living it lying to myself about what makes me happy and working my life away. That was the mental switch after I got fired from that last job, and I gave them my all for 2 years. And I'm just not okay with living my life like that anymore. And that's okay. That's okay. Whew. Wow. That was a lot. If you're still here, I love you, man. Now go put yourself first.